morning, Poet fans. Welcome to another edition of our Alumni Feature Friday. We have a special guest with you here this morning from the swimming and diving team from the class of 2018, Erika Ngo. Erika, thanks for hopping on with me this morning.
Hey, Lance. Thanks for having me. It's really good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too. First question for you, how has quarantine been with you? And I know you're up in Sacramento right now, and how have things been for your mom being down here in Los Angeles?
Yeah, it's been good. Like you said, I moved up to Sacramento right after I graduated, so I have my own apartment with a roommate. In general, I'm pretty much a big homebody anyway, so quarantine didn't actually change much for me, just gave me more excuses to not go out. I have a lot of friends joking with me of like, as quarantine keeps going, they're like, oh no, Erika doesn't have to leave her house, in like a very sarcastic voice. And I'm like, okay, thanks guys. But it's been all right. I think I've been starting to get a little bit stir crazy and kind of cabin fever, but it's all right. I think I've been able to like look around my room a lot and just redecorate and just order a lot of things online because I'm spending so much time in here, and just like, oh, I don't like that, I'm gonna buy some curtains, which I got some blackout curtains finally, and I finally got a desk like 4 months into quarantine. But it's been good, and I try to drive down to LA whenever I can. I have some friends from Sacramento who are also from a very close by city to me, so I'll hitch a ride with them and go see my mom for like a week or two, depending on what my work allows me to be able to do. But yeah, no, quarantine's been all right. I think I'm getting to that point though where I'm like, let it end. So everyone wear your mask, please.
Now, have you heard of any changes being, of course, up there in Sacramento? You guys are now back in the purple, just like we are in LA County, but have you seen any changes up there? Maybe any progress with anything?
I think again, I've barely left my house, so I can like only say how much I can see when I go grocery shopping or maybe go get some takeout. But for the most part, I've been seeing a few more people wearing masks around. I know that I see a lot of signs on like stores and stuff that masks are required and are mandatory to even just enter. So I think that's something, as we keep moving forward, I think that's something different I've been seeing I think before people kind of took the mask stuff, it's like, oh, we don't know if this works and whatnot. And now it's becoming more normalized, which I think is good. I'll go on a walk and I'll see people wearing masks and stuff. So that's been good. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really leave my house. So it's hard for me to say how much it has changed, to be quite honest.
Well, for our second question here, since you graduated in 2018, take us through everything you've been doing. I know you've been doing some big things.
Yeah, so after I graduated, I went straight into so for sure, it's just like, I call it the Assembly Fellowship Program, but it's part of this like larger umbrella fellowship program called the Capital Fellows. And funny enough, one of the main reasons I even applied to this fellowship was because a friend of mine from Whittier did it the year before me. And I had gone to visit him, and he took me to meet his office, and I really loved it. I've always loved politics and have always been super interested in public policy. And so it just really melted a bunch of things together. My advisor in college, Dr. Scott, was really like, in my last year of at Whittier, she was like, okay, I know you're thinking about grad school because that's what every undergrad thinks right now, but I need you, especially you, like to me, I need you to really think about, do you need this degree right now? And it's been something she had been telling me all across undergrad, and it finally sunk in my senior year where I was like, oh, I don't know what I want if I go to grad school. I think I'm just going because I don't know what I want to do. And so this fellowship became a really cool opportunity for me to kind of dip my toes into public policy, and in a way where it wasn't super non-committal. Like I could do my fellowship program that 1 year, and then I could decide if I liked it or not. And if I didn't like it, then that was my time to like go take the GRE or the LSAT, whatever I'd wanted to do at that point. But anyways, really great experience. I can talk a little bit more about what the actual fellows program is, because that's a super vague term I'm using.
Erika, you graduated in psychology with a minor in Chinese. You're in politics. So what happened there?
So another funny story about that. I picked psychology when I was doing my majors because during high school, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. But unless I'm going to go work with computers in the Arctic and my only friend is a penguin, I'm going to need to work with people. And psychology is just understanding behavior, understanding people. And it was one of those things that I just really ended up loving after like my first or second psych class I was taking. And so just even understanding how to communicate, and that's something that is so applicable across disciplines. It doesn't matter if I went into psychology itself, right? A lot of the things I was learning in my classes, I could apply both in like my personal life of how do I communicate better with like my friends and my partner and all these things. And then also how do I do that in the workplace? How can I be an effective communicator with my boss, with people who, you know, in public policy, people don't agree. There's going to be a support and opposition. So how do I effectively communicate with people who maybe aren't seeing things from the same perspective as I am? And so that was a huge like part of it. And it's something I always reference a lot when I'm talking to people, and like when we're talking about problems or issues we have. You know, I take a lot of what I learned in psychology and apply it everywhere. I firmly believe psychology is in everything. I don't know if everyone agrees with me on that, but I stand by that. But yeah, so I decided I didn't want to do grad school. I realized that my advisor was right. I was just using this as a kind of a placeholder of, well, everyone does it. It's not unusual for people to go to grad school right after undergrad. But I realized I didn't actually know what I wanted to do with that degree. And so was introduced to the Capital Fellows program. It has kind of an umbrella of like 4 different programs. So you have the executive fellowship, so that'd be working at a state agency. You have the judiciary fellowship, which is like placing you in court systems across the state. And then you have 2 legislative fellowships, one in the Assembly and one in the Senate, both of which have to do with the state legislature. And we get placed in these offices and essentially treated like entry-level staff and like a really low-level legislative aide. And so it was just this really great opportunity of like being able to actually do the work and like kind of in a way practice, while having a lot of mentorship and not necessarily hand-holding where I couldn't have any independence or agency on my own, but more so in the way that my office and my mentors understood that this was super brand new to me. I kind of needed more guidance and a little bit more check-ins and maybe a more senior-led person. But yeah, it was really great. I get to basically look at specific public policy issue areas, and I have to become like the expert in those matters. And, you know, I will give bill recommendations of, hey, senator or assembly member, I think this is really great policy. This is what it does. I would recommend an aye or a no vote. And, you know, ultimately the member will always have the last say. But it's my job to essentially do all of the research, because thousands of bills go through the legislature, and like the members are one person and they can't read every single bill. And so it's my job to kind of do that and like filter through them of like, okay, this is a particularly non-controversial one. This one is one you might want to take a second look at. And in addition to that, I'm also staffing what we call staffing bills through the legislature. So I'm like taking it through, getting it into like a language. And so like getting it into like the legalese terms. And then I have to become the expert in my bill and understand it from front to back, inside out. Like I have to know everything about my bill. And I'm the one taking it to committee and writing talking points, writing fact sheets, explaining it to people, nonprofits, stakeholders, people who this is going to affect. How do I communicate this to the public? Because I firmly believe that if people don't understand what we're doing in Sacramento, then what are we doing, right? Because these are laws written for the people. And
right.
But yeah, so I did that for a year, really enjoyed my time as a fellow, and decided to stay in Sacramento. I was then hired on as a full-time legislative aide. I made the jump from the Assembly, because that was my program, to the Senate actually, and became a full-time legislative aide for Senator Bob Archuleta, who represents the 32nd Senate District, which I don't want to say ironically, but coincidentally, Whittier College is in that district. And it was one of the reasons I really wanted to apply for that office, because I was like, I spent 4 years at Whittier. This is a place that was, you know, really close by to home anyways, but was somewhere that I think I did a lot of growing, and it, you know, it holds a very special place in my heart. So I was super excited to be able to work for Senator Archuleta and just represent the place that, is so special to me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I'm still a legislative aide. I plan to be a legislative aide or staying in Sacramento for at least another few years.
Okay.
But still trying to figure that out if I want to end up going back to grad school and law school now that I've had a chance to actually get some working experience and, realize what I actually want to do with my life.
Now, what prepared you for the first job that you got working the assembly? How did you learn all of this? Or did you just jump in and just learn on the fly?
A little bit of both to that, because it was like part of it, and it's something I say to like people who are new to the building, like new fellows, new legislators, they're like new staffers. I think that there's a lot you have to learn on the job. No one is necessarily an expert. And so I use like expert in air quotes because no one is going to truly be an expert in every issue area. But there is a lot of things that I had to learn on the spot, specifically the public policy stuff and the legislative process. But and as you pointed out earlier, my major was psychology. It wasn't political science, which is also really funny because most people assume it's political science when they meet me up here and I tell them, nope, psychology. But I think it's one of those things of, in general, good working habits. It's something that I tell a lot of people. I think that there's a lot of things you can learn on the job. There's a lot of like some of the more technical stuff that we can teach you, but the good work ethic, the critical thinking, great writing, being able to like just good reading comprehension, those are things that you come in with. And I think those are things that were really honed in during my time at Whittier. And like I mentioned, like a lot of things I learned in my psychology courses, I apply to everything in my life, not just like my work. And so a lot of those like critical thinking skills are what I need because I'm essentially analyzing hundreds of bills like every year. I have to be able to analyze my own bill. When I'm writing talking points, I have to think about what is the opposition going to say about my bill, because when my boss is presenting this in front of committee or on the floor of the assembly, I need to make sure that I'm writing him answers to any questions he may get. And a lot of that's going to take critical thinking skills and analysis of not just looking at it from my perspective and what I believe, but also from the perspective of people who may not agree with me. And I think a lot of those things, Whittier being a liberal arts college, like we have to take classes outside of our typical discipline. You don't get siloed into one thing, and you're put outside your comfort zone. So there's a lot of like kind of learning on the spot, becoming familiar with things you were really not aware of before. There's a lot of chances to meet people with different perspectives, which, I grew up in Southern California, and I think a lot of people see that as just like bubble, this like Southern California bubble. And so college is a really great opportunity where people from across the state will come and we can talk about how did they grow up and how did I grow up. And a lot of that being able to see from other people's perspectives is so important in what I do in my job. A lot of those people skills are so important in what I do in my job. So just in general, like it's not just the hard skills, it's the soft skills of like people skills and being able to see things from other people's perspective. Now, but I think like Whittier did a good job of giving me that chance too.
Yeah. Now, do you see a lot of individuals that you work with? Are they coming from Division III institutions, or are they all coming from bigger colleges and you're one of the outliers?
Yeah. So it's funny because I will meet a lot of, I think most of my network tends to be people who are also fellows. I mean, it's just in general, like when you enter in with the program, people tend to stay connected or stick around. I know that there's a couple of Whittier people that I've met up there. And my friend who's up here, we talk a lot about, okay, we need to try and set up an alumni thing where we get all of the people from Whittier and the Capital community together. We haven't done it yet, but I think we're going to try to at some point.
Okay.
And we kind of joke about like, we want to set up kind of this like pipeline of getting Whittier people to the Capitol. But in general, like, I think that in some ways I'm an outlier because most people have not heard of Whittier College. It's just a very small school. But at the same time, like I see people who are from the Claremont colleges, people from, I think I've met like someone from Chapman. So there's like still some small liberal arts schools that are also there. But like you said, I think that there's a lot of like diversity. A lot of people from the UCs tend to be there. So In those cases, I'm the outlier and the only one in the room who went to a private college, but I rep Whittier very proudly. And yeah.
Nice. Now, let's talk about your experience attending Whittier College. You're a 4-year letter winner in swimming and diving. Like we talked about, you graduated with a degree in psychology with a minor in Chinese. How did Whittier College prepare you for what you're doing now?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I think in general, I had a really great foundation for just how to time manage, how to balance things. As a staffer, I'm constantly being pulled in multiple directions. So it's okay, I have my bills I need to worry about. Oh, I have a meeting with people from nonprofits or groups advocates across the state who came specifically for this day to talk about these set of bills that are their priorities, that are super important to them. Sometimes my boss will need something and it's oh, I need to kind of drop everything and do this now, while also making sure I get everything else done. Sometimes I like to do some communication stuff. For a previous boss, I did a lot of Twitter posts for him or writing press releases, writing op-eds, trying to just basically an office is such this intricate working system of everyone helping out. So I'm constantly being pulled in different directions. And I think a lot of what I did at Whittier, trying to stay involved, being in athletics, working with you in the sports information program and stuff like that, I was constantly being pulled in different directions. And so a lot of that just helped prepare me for what this is. And again, the critical thinking stuff I got in my classes, the diversity of thought and just hearing different perspectives are all things that I use now.
And being at Whittier College, especially including Dr. Scott, did the faculty and staff help you get internships throughout your college career that kind of set you up for success now?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It was definitely one of those, I know that I use is it Handshake or something like that? Yeah, I think I used that to find an internship the year before I did my fellowship program. And that ended up connecting me to people who actually knew people in the fellowship program and kind of made a call or sent an email on my behalf to say, hey, take another look at this person's application.
Nice.
And Dr. Scott and the faculty were also really great about always taking some time aside when say it was we finished the lesson for the day or so, and doing kind of these resume workshops or trying to really instill professional skills in me. I know that there was one time in my fellowship program where I got an email from my director saying, hey, I really appreciate that you're one of the only people who constantly replies to my emails, because I feel like I'm emailing this into a black hole and no one is replying back to me. And that was something that I know that Dr. Scott really instilled in me of reply to your emails, because no one wants to think that they were left unread. So that's something that I think that they do. And having that chance to get to know my professors has definitely made me more comfortable speaking to people who are kind of in authority, in positions of authority. So I mean, that was I feel I had a really great working relationships with my professors, and many of them I still try to keep in contact with. Dr. Scott was one of them, one of my mentors at Whittier, and someone I still talk to. So yeah.
Now let's talk about the athletic side of things. You were successful in the pool, swam the 100, 200 breast, 200 IM, among others. You were also number 8 in the record books in the 100 breast and number 9 in the 200 breast with your times. But you were also successful in the classroom, and you were a part of a number of clubs and organizations. You were involved on campus probably more than any other student athlete that I've known throughout my time at Whittier. But how were you able to balance it all? And let's talk about your experience being a student athlete.
Yeah, I saw that question that you sent me, and I was like, well, part of it was I didn't sleep, but I kind of want to, I'm that's kind of a joke, but kind of not. So I think part of it was, I think I learned how to prioritize things. I think starting college, I tried to be in a lot of different activities and clubs. And one of the things I realized as I kept going on was, oh, I actually not necessarily don't care about it, but in terms of priorities, and if I had to drop one, I kind of started to realize what were the things that were most important to me. And during my time at Whittier, and I think this is something I hear throughout the athletic department too, is you're a student first, then an athlete. And also that really resonated with me because I think for me, as much as I love swimming and I still love swimming, school was always going to come first. And so that was something that was always really important for me to understand, was that I had to have my priorities straight. And I know a lot of people say time management, which is true. It is a lot of time management. It's how can I kind of multitask in some things of like trying to set up my schedule of like, I'm not running halfway across campus to get to my next thing. How do I kind of set it up where everything's in one place, or like I dedicate a night to, okay, I know I don't have to go to like a water polo game and have to do stats there. This is the night I'm going to do maybe some tutoring or something like that. So just like kind of blocking out my schedule. And again, like kind of figuring out, and this is something I'm still figuring out, but understanding what my limits are of, as much as I want to do this thing, I just can't, because I don't believe in kind of like doing it halfway. I want to be able to put my like full effort into this. I don't think it's necessarily fair to everyone if I'm just kind of showing up and doing only like a halfway decent job. I fully believe in like putting your all into that. And so that's something I had to learn as I went along in my college career. And you know, there are definitely hiccups. Like I don't want it to seem like I was able to perfectly do all of these like billions of things I'm doing on campus, from like research assistant to like tutoring and TAing and working the games and trying to do stats. They're like, it wasn't easy. And I don't ever want to like say the illusion that it was easy, while also having morning practice at 6 a.m., which I'm not a morning person. So that in itself was difficult. And then also having my own classes that I'm trying to figure out. But I think that, again, like I had to figure out my priorities, and at the same time also having a social life, right? Like there has to be a balance. So I think in general, like just time management and then figuring out what my priorities became very important to me. And that always was school and then swimming. So now, another thing is like, if I knew that I wasn't passionate about swimming anymore, I kind of made an agreement with myself that like the second I like don't want to swim anymore, I'm gonna stop. And like I know that's not always the advice you want to hear from student athletes, but it's like one of those things of like, again, I believe in putting your all into it. And if you're just there to show up and just to be there, that's not fair to you, that's not fair to your teammates, that's not fair to your coaches. And so again, I always told myself, the second I like hated swimming, the second I really dreaded going to practice or going to meets, that was the day I was going to quit. And thankfully that never came, because I had such a great team and such a great support system and loved my coaches and obviously loved swimming. So
now, are you in touch with some of those athletes and friends that you have?
Yeah, I actually texted a couple of them that you texted me about this. So I was like, guys, should I do this? So there's a couple of my teammates, and a lot of people from my class, we try to do a Skype or like a Zoom like conversation. I think we've done like it twice over the quarantine.
Okay.
So it's been nice. So we still talk. We still like, you know, have each other on Instagram and Facebook and all of these things. But we'll text the group message every once in a while. But yeah, no, there's definitely like a few swimmers that I still keep in contact with.
Well, especially during this time of COVID, you need that you know, system, that support system. And of course, if you're able to stay with your friends and your teammates, that's great to have, for sure.
Yeah. I'm hoping to FaceTime some of them soon. I've been meaning to do that.
And it's always nice too to reach out to your faculty, you know, members and old professors and your advisor, you know, Dr. Scott, and the professors on campus. They definitely want to talk to you more and see what you've been up to, and it definitely helps them out as well.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Now, the last question I have for you, any words of advice for athletes who are attending Whittier College currently, who want to get involved but don't know how to, or maybe new athletes that are looking at wanting to attend Whittier but kind of need that little push a little bit more? What guidance can you offer?
Yeah, so I think one thing in general that I would advise people to do is really, especially at Whittier, really take advantage of the fact that you can actually have this working relationship with professors. You know, Whittier has super small class sizes, and again, like there are professors and advisors like that I still talk to 2 years after I've graduated. And I don't know if there's a lot of places where everyone has that opportunity to do so. So I really recommend just doing that, because also like doing that was what helped me get involved in certain things. Like I wouldn't have been able to be a TA. I wouldn't have been able to be a research assistant. I wouldn't have been able to like get involved in psych-hi and like all of these things if I didn't, you know, put in an effort to get to know my psychology professors. And that was something that was really important to me. And so I would really recommend just taking that time, taking an opportunity, just like, you know, go to office hours, introduce yourself. These professors are here to help you because a lot of like they care. And I think that brings me to like number 2 is care. Like I mentioned, the second that I knew I didn't care about swimming or wanted to stop, that was when I was going to quit. I fully believe in putting your all into these things and like, just, I think really care about what you're doing, care about like your school, care about your team and all these things. So there's that. I think try to put yourself out there and, you know, put yourself in situations where you put yourself outside of your comfort zone. I think that was something that, you know, I think that and it may not come across right now, but I consider myself very much an introvert. And I don't tend to like to put myself in large crowd situations, but at, you know, my last year, Whittier, I was Psych-Hi co-president, and that took on a whole set of responsibilities that I, you know, had never done before. And so it was like, I had troubles and I had like challenges that year, but it was one of those things that like, I'm very thankful for the opportunity to get to know more people and take on like these new responsibilities, even though like I was putting myself in an uncomfortable, like, I don't know what I'm doing and the imposter syndrome is setting in. And, but I think a lot of that has helped me here in the Capitol and really starting to put myself out there, reaching out to people more. I know it can be a bit difficult, it can be a bit draining, but it's worth it. And I really enjoy it. Like, I wouldn't say I have like a huge like network of friends, but I think I have a really close set of friends that I know I can rely on. But at the same time, like taking that opportunity to reach out and say, hey, can we grab coffee? And these are people that have helped me find work opportunities later. So just putting yourself out there, I think, is really important. And I don't know, I'm like rambling now, but yeah, just putting yourself out there, care, and then take advantage of the like access you have to your professors.
Of course, yeah. Getting involved on campus, you know, it's going to help in networking, graduate school. And just like you were successful. You were on Handshake, and then it led to what you're doing now, you know, up at the Capitol. So awesome. Well, Erika, that's all the time that I have this morning. I want to thank you so much for hopping on with me for our Alumni Feature Friday. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Lance. Thanks for having me.
And if you ever come across Gavin Newsom up there at the Capitol, make sure you throw in a good word for us down here in LA. Hopefully we'll open up soon.
I've only been in the same room as him like once, and it was like this huge like hall, and I like could only, he's like kind of tall, so I could like see him over like people. He's like on a stage too, but I've never actually met him. I'm kind of jealous of all the people who have like pictures with him, and I'm like, wow, I want a selfie with the governor. But I don't know if I'll ever run into him.
Maybe your time will come. I mean, you're moving up in the ranks, so. But once again, hopefully you stay warm up there. I know, like you said, it's really cold up there in Sacramento. But continue, sharing with us all of your accolades and what you're doing. Okay.
Thanks, Lance.
Okay, great seeing you, Erika.
Great to see you too.